Aloha, everyone. Michelle Melendez with Blossom Inner Wellness and StandTogetherHawaii.com. And I'm super excited to be interviewing today Sheila Walker. She is running for Senate. She ran for Senate in 2023, running for Senate for Lahaina and Kihei. Also, she's running again in 2024. So get her name on your ballot. So Sheila, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today. I'm happy to share this podcast with your viewers.
So you were there for when the fire went down. Can please share your experience when you were in Kihei, right?
I was in Kihei. Kihei is about 20 miles south of Lahaina, and the power went out in Lahaina early in the afternoon, or actually early morning. Power went out, and so my friends from Lahaina were texting me, asking me if I could bring them some updates because they said we don't have power, cell lines were spotty, cell service was very spotty. So they would say, can you, tell us what's going on from your perspective? Do you see anything? Do you hear anything? And I was looking all over social media, all over our news to try to find out what was happening. And there were no updates. No updates, no reports of fires, spotty fires here and there, because that's how the wildfires kind of go off, but nothing important, nothing of any significance, nothing that sounded like an emergency throughout the entire day. Although people kept seeing smoke, and people would report flames, and we would see on social media flames, but our officials were not giving any reports. News, no reports, nothing anywhere on any of the channels. So everyone just kept going about their day basically, and not really, paying attention, or not really thinking that anything was super an emergency. Which
Wow.
is, now we know, looking back, super tragedy, because a lot of the deaths absolutely could have been prevented, which is just heartbreaking. So we knew there were fires happening in Lahaina, but we didn't know where. And we knew there were fires happening up country in Kula, but there weren't really enough reports on what the seriousness was. So again, we didn't really have the updates that were necessary in an emergency situation. So super tragic. Anyway, to continue on through the day, the school was let out in Lahaina, and then all the kids were sent home. And that was also, now we look back, a mistake. And
huge.
Yeah, huge mistake, a tragedy. But by 11:30 at night, so the day goes on. We know there's fires in Lahaina at some point in the evening, but not sure where. At 11:30 at night, I get a report, an alert on my phone that says evacuate your neighborhood. So my neighborhood of Maui Meadows was evacuated at 11:30 at night. And still, we're trying to find reports. Where are the fires? Why are we being evacuated? We thought it was in Lahaina. So they said the fires were coming our way. It come to find out, they stopped about 5 miles from our neighborhood. So they did stop before they got to my neighborhood, but we got alerts. My neighborhood got alerts, and we were evacuated. So somehow some people got alerted, other people didn't. And the next, and as I was actually watching the mayor's report, his press conference from his office, just sitting back in his chair saying, yes, there's some fires, they're contained. He seemed super calm. He didn't seem very alarmed. But at the time he was videotaping this response, Lahaina town was burning to the ground.
Oh my gosh.
So it's really hard
because
to
didn't
believe.
didn't you have reports that there were hurricane winds, and this is like before this fire happened? I heard that there was reports that there's hurricane winds in the area and the fire danger is really high, so be alert. Was that going on before the fires, or was that?
It's true, strong winds, but even in my
Strong winds.
neighborhood, I didn't pull any of my patio furniture off of my lanai. It wasn't strong enough to like pull my umbrella off. So, and if you live on Maui, you know that there's strong winds all the time. It's always windy there. So in my perspective, there wasn't anything super unusual. But high winds, okay, you kind of look at your furniture and think, oh, I need to bring in, 1 or 2 of these chairs or something so they don't blow off. but
Yeah.
I didn't even have to remove any of my furniture. So in my specific
Wow.
area in Kihei, the winds weren't that high. But
Okay.
somehow
Wow.
in
So,
Lahaina became some sort of wind tunnel that turned into some sort of fiery fury. So it was specific to that area.
wow. So you guys were alerted, but Lahaina residents did not get any kind of warning. The sirens didn't go off, which they should have, and they didn't have any text on their phone, but you guys got text on your phone.
We did get a text alert, and I still need to get to the bottom of where that alert came from. I don't know where that alert, I don't know if that's from Verizon, my carrier, or if it's from the government or what it was. It was not an Amber Alert. It was just an alert message that said, evacuate your neighborhood now due to fire conditions. And it told us the gym to go to. It told us to go to the gym at the high school in Wailuku. So we were supposed to drive that direction, but honestly, we didn't even know where the fires were. And the fires, in order to get to that gym, we would probably have to be driving through the fires. So a lot of people were skeptical to leave. They didn't want to leave, and they didn't want to leave their home. But there's, like a lot of places on Maui, almost everywhere, there's only one way in and one way out. So from Kihei, you can only go one direction to get out. So, and that was probably straight through the fires. So we didn't, a lot of people were hesitating to even leave. At the end of the day, a lot of my neighbors did leave, and my landlords and I decided to stay, which looking back, I mean, like, we are so lucky that the fires didn't come all the way to our neighborhood, because we would have been burned alive as well, because there's just no escaping, because there's no other exit. So it's a failure on so many, like, in so many realms. It's just unbelievable that that this kind of failure could occur so epically on so many fronts. From the government, our leadership, everything failed us.
Have you been to Lahaina? Did you go to Lahaina after the
We
fires?
can't go. No one could go. They wouldn't let anybody in. Even if you had a home there that wasn't destroyed, they wouldn't let you in or out. And they even started to implement a placard system where you had to have the placards, but the people revolted against that. I'm so glad they did. They stood up and said, this is ridiculous that we can't get in and out of our own neighborhoods to get supplies. So they revolted against that, and the officials backed down and said, okay, we agree to let you back into your own homes. So the only way to get supplies, to go to Costco, to get anything for the people who live anywhere further west than Lahaina, is to drive through the one road that gets you in and out of there, which the road was not ruined. The road was totally safe to continue to drive on, but they were just trying to shut it down and control the area and not let people actually see the devastation that happened.
Wow. So when this, after all the aftermath happened, well, first I want to just say, I want to acknowledge the people who are standing up and pushing back, because that's what this is going to take. It's going to take all of us to stand up and to question things. What makes my blood boil is that there's no investigation into this, because this fire is, when I look at it and I look at the Paradise Fire, which my mother's 30 minutes from Paradise. Paradise was my second job. And I went up there. It's just not a normal fire. And then I just watched this microwave engineer expert, and not microwave as in your microwave in your house, but the actual frequency of energy waves, of microwave energy waves, and what that takes, and what a fire looks like when it's a microwave energy versus a regular fire. And I'm going to be doing the video on that and interviewing this man. Super excited. But when you started seeing the aftermath of what they were doing and how they were handling this, what were you thinking?
It's appalling. One failure after another. Absolutely appalling failure of systems. No sirens, no tsunami sirens. And then to find out that they chose not to sound the sirens, it's just a slap in the face. It's appalling that they did this to the people on purpose. And obviously that the gentleman that made that decision has resigned. Then they decided to not release the water to the area. What kind of human being does not want to fight that fire we know with the water supply and controls the water. Obviously, that gentleman has also resigned conveniently. Both of those guys probably fled for their lives because a lynch mob would have come after them if they would have found them, because both of them are totally responsible for all the lives that were lost in this tragedy. Those two things alone are horrifying. But then you look at all the other epic failures that occurred from our government, even sending the children home to homes where they didn't have parental supervision. Where are those children? How could you in your right conscience send children home when most schools are the actual shelter areas? They should have been supervised by their teachers and held in that shelter area, as opposed to being sent home without any kind of supervision. So many epic failures. It's disgusting, and I'm appalled, and our officials need to be held accountable for this, and they need to provide answers, and they are not providing any significant answers or even providing enough empathy to say that they're sorry about this entire tragedy. And that's also appalling.
Yes. The chief emergency management for Maui was actually on Oahu, even though there were these alerts that said that, there's a danger here, and that Lahaina since 2018 had a report saying that they needed to clear the brush. They didn't have any fire breaks. They didn't have an evacuation plan. There was a fire there. So, and this man, so there's an alert saying, hey, this is a danger. And then he goes off island. So, and I thought that was very interesting. So the children, let's go back to the children. Why do you think they let them out?
Okay, so the electricity was out, right? So the school had no electricity, high winds. All right, maybe they did just make a bad call here and they sent them home. But how are they going to be safer in their homes without parental supervision with no electricity and high winds? That part just doesn't make sense to me. I'm not sure why the children were released and sent home under these conditions, but I doubt that is a protocol, or that it like maybe it is their protocol, but it just doesn't seem like that would be the right thing to do in such a emergency style situation. So I find that appalling that they sent the children home. And now another thing I want to ask you, or have you look into as well, Michelle, because I know you like to do these deep dives. Where are the mothers that are concerned about these children? I haven't seen one single mother pleading on social media that her child was lost, or her child was sent home, or her child was home alone. I don't see one mother out there saying something's wrong here. Why did you send my children home? So where are these mothers? I mean, I would think that all these mothers would be irate that their children were sent home without their supervision. So and no one so far on social media. So either the social media is being censored, and these grieving, a mother would be grief stricken right now if they couldn't find their child or realize their child is now probably perished. So either they're censoring the social media please, or there are no missing children, or they took the children and the mothers. I don't know. I can't come up with the all the possibilities we can guess to till the end of the days, but something is not right. Something is just too fishy.
And they also don't know the number of children, like you were telling me off camera. They know the number of teachers that are missing, but not the number of children. And the mayor was actually asked by that, and he said, we don't know. And then another resident got really angry. What do you mean you don't know the number that is missing? And the mayor almost just canceled the whole meeting, the whole conversation. And just by that one question. So that's really interesting. What do you think about that?
The mayor was triggered. He was definitely triggered, and he decided he'd rather cancel the press conference than be confronted with the fact that they don't either have the numbers or they're covering up the numbers. And every principal would know how to account for every child. I mean, it would be easy to contact every single teacher and say, teachers, how many children do you know are here or not here? It's a small, tight-knit community. Everybody knows everybody. It would not be hard to figure out the numbers of where those children are. Of course, the 7 missing teachers can't account for their children because the teachers aren't there. But so I don't know. Are all those teachers are all the children from their classrooms gone? Is that how it worked? They took the teachers and the students? I have no idea. No idea, but it's just appalling to me that they can't come up with a number, they can't come up with answers, and that the parents aren't just screaming to high heavens saying, you've got to get this figured out now. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. And if,
surely, sorry to interrupt you,
no,
Michelle,
go
but
ahead.
surely so many people are traumatized. This is it.
Yeah.
If you're stuck in trauma, you're not able to speak out like you and I are, because you're just, I'm sure they're frozen. I'm sure they have no words for what's happened. I'm sure they aren't even angry yet. They're just paralyzed. And I understand that type of grief. So that is what happens in trauma situations. So if they're not able to speak up yet, I hope they do in the future. And those of us who can speak up right now, like, that's why we're
Yes.
speaking out.
Yeah, and if you're watching this and you're a parent in Maui, please contact me, Michelle at Blossom Inner Wellness, Michelle at blossominnerwellness.com, and I'll put you on. We'll get a podcast for you as well. Or firefighters. I want to interview firefighters that are there because I thought it's very interesting. How did the fire go out? They don't have water. The firemen evacuated. And like, how did it go out then? Like, who put the fire out? Why didn't the whole Maui burn? But Lahaina, the most amazing place. And I want to talk a little bit about what Lahaina means to the Hawaii Islands. But do you know how the fire went out?
No, and
Super
the fire that was
interesting.
headed towards my neighborhood, I don't know either. It was coming towards my neighborhood with gusts of winds across the prairie with the prairie, the mountainside, the brush, because between the brush was burning and there was nothing between the brush and my neighborhood. So theoretically, it should have come all the way over to my neighborhood, but somehow miraculously it stopped at 5 miles before my neighborhood. So how did that stop? I don't know. The winds didn't stop. They weren't there really spraying water. I mean, they weren't doing any airlifts supposedly because the winds were too high to do the airlift drops. So I don't know how that one stopped. I don't know how the Lahaina fire stopped either. It just seems to have gotten to a place where it decided to stop miraculously.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I heard that they were airlifting victims from Maui, but taking them to Oahu, but they weren't doing the airdrops of water. And then when I was looking it up, the water company literally had said that they had one guy who had a taro field of water, and they needed to let him know that or get his consent or something to shift the water to have it go down to Lahaina for the fire department to be able to use it on the fire. Like, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. And yes, so so Sheila, thank you so much and for joining in this tragedy. I want to talk a little bit about what Lahaina means to the Hawaii Islands, because it used to be the capital of Hawaii, right?
It was. Yeah, it is the capital of the Hawaiian Kingdom. And yes, it has been home to all the kings and queens. So Queen Kaahumanu was last seated there, and she was the wife of King Kamehameha the third. I hope it's the third and not the first. The first would have been many more years prior. But so yes, and this queen she was for the freedom of the people. She absolutely stood up for freedom, and she wanted to stop a lot of the anarchy and stop the oligarchs from controlling people. And she understood slavery and she understood what it meant. So I think if we take a look at the historical aspects of this, it might be very interesting to kind of peel back the layers of that as well. So the Hawaii history is very deep. It's like trying to understand something, the wars that go on in the Middle East. These topics are sensitive, they're culturally sensitive, and it's hard to understand all the minute details of the rights of the people and the original people, and who believes that they are the original people. So I think all of this plays into it as well. But what we do know is that those properties were owned for generations to Hawaiian families. So a lot of that beachfront property had been in those families for 5 generations. And so those families are never, ever, ever going to sell their property. So
Yeah.
it's a, it's a little disheartening, because the only way to make them leave is to create such a disaster,
Yep.
so that they would have to go, and then
And
not be able
have you
to
heard?
go ahead.
Oh, wait, say what you were
And
just going to say, because that's
not
true.
be able to afford the cleanup, because what's going to
Hmm.
happen, I mean, let's just say it like it is, it's going to become a toxic waste site, and
Yes.
the people who own an acre of land there, or half acre, whatever your property is, they're going to say, oh, it's $5 million to clean your waste land before you can rebuild, and no one's insurance is going to cover that 5 million to do that, and you have to dig down to whatever 20 feet in order to qualify for being a clean environment again, and so they won't be able to afford it. There's no way, and insurance isn't going to cover it. So what are you going to do? Like, you have a piece of land you can't do anything with, so eventually they're going to be forced to sell. That's what's going to happen, and the government will come in and say, oh, well, we can clean that up for you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
then
what do you think about?
yeah,
Go
then
ahead.
we'll build something nice there that you can rent.
Well, that's what Josh Green was saying when he was first talking. He said, "Oh, I'm looking for ways to for the state to acquire the land to
Mm-hmm,
create workforce housing."
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Workforce housing.
mm-hmm.
Are we now slaves? Because of workforce housing, what is that? And I'm looking for ways for the state to acquire the land. What did you think about that?
Mm-hmm. You have to listen to the details. That his
Mm-hmm.
clues are very subtle, but if you listen to the details of what he's saying, if you're not paying attention, you might think, "Oh, that's great! How lovely! Oh, he's going to help
Yeah.
us build back." Yeah, well, they're going to build back, all right. They're going to build back, in a way that keeps the people enslaved, and the elites will have the entitlement to all of the equity in that land. So
Yeah. And because
mm,
Josh Green was at the United Nations a month prior in July, stating how there was going to be a smart city, that Maui was going to be the first smart city, and then the Maui chief financial officer of Maui was actually on the board for studying ways that AI, artificial intelligence, can actually get into the government policies and how it can actually start to run the island. Have you heard of that?
yeah,
What are your
I'm
thoughts on
seeing
that?
this too, and reading it as well, and it's heartbreaking, and it's really
Hmm.
hard to digest. Like, I don't want to believe it. I don't want to think it's so, but the evidence is before our eyes. We all have to wake up and face the fact that this is where they're heading. This is what they want. And unless we all band together and stand up, which I know
Yes.
the people of Lahaina are strong, and I know they are not going to stand for losing their land. So we've got to just continue to stay aware of this and fight against this, because this is absolute government takeover, tyranny,
Yeah.
and I will not accept it at any level.
So so not only was the emergency chief operator Brent, like, new to his position, I think it was only a year or so that he got the position, over 40 different applicants when he had zero qualifications, zero experience for this position, and now he has since resigned. The police chief got in. He was the police chief of Vegas when there was the mass shooting. And I haven't looked into that, but a lot of people are telling me that there was a major cover up with the mass shooting. I don't know anything about it because that's not something that I've dove into. But this man, clearly, when I see him speak and the way he speaks, and how he speaks to the people, in my personal opinion, this is just opinion, that he's a total bully. But on the other, what happened with the police, there has been many witnesses saying that the police blockaded people from leaving Lahaina. Have you heard about that? Do you know anything about that?
Yes, and I exactly, and all the reports are saying that. Although, but we have to look at the whole picture, right? There were downed power lines and power poles crossing the highways everywhere from left to right. I don't know how those power poles blew over and fell down, but they were across the highway. So if people had tried to leave, especially on the end where they're talking about the Kanapali side, the cars would have just gotten jammed up like 5 blocks further. than they were already jammed up. So they still would have been consumed by fire. They still would have been in a traffic jam because you couldn't have gone any further. So I don't know if those officers
Okay.
were, really trying to help or the hindering. I don't know, but they were trying to keep people contained in this small area down by the water. But also, when I saw the down power poles, you couldn't have driven anywhere anyway. So it wouldn't have helped to even go forward. But you could have maybe perhaps driven forward and then jumped out of your car and ran further if they would have let them go. So it's hard to say if I'm not saying that the police did that on purpose to try to kill people. That's ludicrous to even think. But they were trying to keep people from just driving into a downed power pole. So at that point, and also remember, there was a lack of communication. There was a lack of cell phones, no electricity. No one knew what was going on. And the visibility was very dense too from all the smoke. So
Yeah.
they couldn't even see what to do. So I think it was just a failure, a huge failure, a tragic failure on many accounts. At best it was a failure. At worst, it was some sort of nefarious, activity. But we can prosecute the failures here. These failures need to be outed. These failures need to be prosecuted. The departments that failed us need to be held accountable for these failures.
Absolutely. So there's two things I want to ask about that. First is the police, I've been told and I've been seeing a lot of video on social media that shows that the people that want to bring in food and water aren't able to, that they're being stopped, and that there's tour boats that are taking the water and the food and going around the blockade of stopping that and giving it to the people. So do you know anything about that?
It's true, especially in the beginning and then towards the middle as well of the recovery. The first few days, there was no services, there was no government services. So the local people were helping, the churches, the people, everyone had relatives or friends in that area.
Yeah.
So we were bringing supplies in, and we were able to get in initially, but they still tried to block off the roads, block off the avenues of one road. There's not roads, one road to get the supplies in. But we easily were able to boat up to shore, boat up to private property, get supplies into the people. But once the government agencies like FEMA and the Red Cross came in, then they definitely blocked off the roads and blocked anything from coming in. So we were providing hot meals and different things, but unless it was FEMA certified or Red Cross certified and sealed in a plastic container bag or whatever, then they wouldn't let anything come in. So it's really heartbreaking that the local people were taking care of their own local friends and families, and then the outsiders that came in from the East Coast took over and then said, oh no, you can't take care of your own people. And who do you think Hawaiians want to be comforted by? You think they want to be comforted by their friends and family, or you think they want to be comforted by some East Coast people who are saying, oh, we know how to do this, we handle these situations all the time? Hawaiians don't care about that. They want their friends, they want their ohana, they want their family. They don't want these outsiders, and to be that culturally insensitive to the people. That's also just another trauma that you're adding to the already, huge traumatic experience.
Now, I heard that there's going to be so far there's no prosecution of any of this. And so one of the actions, so if you're watching this again, standtogetherhawaii.com, standtogetherhawaii.com is where to go for for an action step for the contact information of the governor, the prosecuting attorney general, the state representatives, the 2 senators that we have, the media, all of the main media outlets is there, and the police chief's information is there. And I say that we contact the prosecuting attorney general's office and state, we want this to be prosecuted. We want an investigation into these, into what happened here and the major issues that happened with this incredibly atrocious event that happened in Lahaina. What do you think about that? Why aren't they prosecuting? Why aren't they looking into this?
Absolutely. A forensic investigation, just like you would any airline crash, any other tragedy. We need a full forensic investigation of this situation.
Hmm.
Every single system needs to be investigated, and
Hmm.
we need prosecution. So I would say the fundraising now needs to be going to our attorneys to lawyer up, because we need to place every single penny. Now that our families are pretty much taken care of as far as their basic needs, most of them have shelter and food and clothing now, but we need to lawyer up to make sure they have the proper representation with lawyers. We also need to make sure they have money, like they're needing cash right now, money for renting cars to get themselves like mobile again, and for paying their
Yeah.
own rent, and for paying their mortgages, because many people who may still have their house don't have their job. So we're going to need cash to help these people recover. And we also need to call for a resignation of our mayor.
Yes.
That's Mayor Richard Bisson
Yes.
needs to resign now. He has failed us on every level, and he promised, when he got into office, he promised that he would take care of the Hawaiian people, because he's Hawaiian, and he has not taken care of his people in the way that is necessary. He's failed. He needs to call an emergency meeting of the county council, create funds. Like right now, we can pull the budget together and allocate funds to these people immediately. He has not done anything to lead us in that direction. Mayor Bisson, you need to resign now, or step up and do the right thing and take care of these people.
Absolutely. And what do you think about the police chief and the governor? Because the governor, when he was talking about, I'm looking for way. This was the first day after this emergency on the media. I'm looking for ways for the state to acquire the land to create workforce housing, or his exact words. And I was like, my jaw dropped. I was like, how can you possibly say you're going to take away people's land when they just lost everything? And it's been, like you said, in their family for generations. How dare he? How dare he say that? I
Yes,
think he should be
absolutely.
pulled out too. I think he should be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you know what? Mayor Bisson could stand up to him. Mayor Bisson could say,
Mm,
no, 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 this is not going to happen in my county, on this land. But
mhm.
so I'm going to put it on Bisson's back to stand up to our governor. I mean, our governor is not going to stand up for anyone in Hawaii. He's not even Hawaiian. He's not even from
Yeah.
here. So that, I mean, I'm not even sure why he's in office at all in the first place, but Bisson has a responsibility to his ancestors to do the right
Absolutely.
thing and stand up to the governor.
Yep, absolutely. So Sheila Walker is running for Senate for Lahaina, for Kihei, and if you are in those districts, she's going to be running in 2024. I highly recommend that you put her on the ballot, check her off as your vote for Senate for Lahaina and for Kihei. Thank you so much, Sheila. Anything else you want to add?
Thanks, Michelle. If any of your viewers would like to see more about my platform, what I stand for, because I do stand for more fire safety, more fire exits, more firehouses, you can go to votesheilawalker.com. That's my website where I post, and please follow me on social media platforms, Sheila Walker for State Senate.
Awesome. So votesheilawalker.com. And yes, well, I am looking forward to seeing you in office. And thank you so much for your time. And if anybody watching would like to be interviewed for, if you were there and you have testimony you would like to get out, if you're a firefighter, I would highly love to interview you, because I want to know what your experience was. I've been seeing some firefighters that are saying that this is just not a normal fire, and I'm going to be doing a video on that. So again, standtogetherhawaii.com. Thank you so much for joining, Sheila, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you for having me.